Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Dark Souls 2 reaction video to the OST. And it's very difficult to say on the top of my mind about what exactly the best boss fight in Dark Souls 2 is, because there are a fair number of candidates up for grabs, but for my money, because he has the best lore, he has the best story, he's one of the sort of bosses that you're kind of almost a little bit reluctant to kill because of what he sacrificed and what he did for his people. But the distinction goes immediately to the Burnt Ivory King, who, remember, his king, I'll just try not to spoil it too much, but Liam Lois, the place you travel to, was an entire city fortress built specifically to contain the evils of the old chaos, which lie the fathoms below the surface. In fact, the portal to the old chaos was built specifically in the king's throne room so that he himself would be the first line of defense if things got out of control and chaos tried to escape and infect the world once again. Which, yes, is absolutely carries on from the bed of chaos from the first game. But here, it seems to have spread and to have manifested into a life of its own in which monstrosities appear to either come from it or rather are created in the light or the gaze of the old chaos. And, well, eventually the Burnt Ivory King leapt down with a squadron of knights to fight the chaos itself and ultimately became one with the chaos. And following your journey all the way through Liam Lois, you can require many Lois knights to fight on your behalf as you and all of them travel all the way to the old chaos and you fight the Ivory King's men, and then you take on the Ivory King himself in a very epic and very fitting duel for what is essentially like the last DLC boss for Dark Souls 2, because I don't quite know on the top of my head about which DLC was released last, whether it was this, the Iron King, or the Slumbering Crown, but the Burnt Ivory King is still, in my opinion, the boss that should be fought last in amongst all these DLCs, because, well, let's face it, if you, for whatever reason, if you were fighting the two tigers or you're fighting the reskin of the Smelter Demon, then no, that doesn't really cap off the Dark Souls 2 experience. It doesn't really explain the full extent of what this game can actually do. And if the Burnt Ivory King's sacrifice and the love and adoration of his wife, who appears to have come from something resembling the Dark Lord Manus, we then have to talk about just what happens when, because the music doesn't actually begin until the Ivory King appears in battle. And how he appears is just through two pillars that just emerge at the ends of the arena, and a portal is open and out walks the Burnt Ivory King, almost specifically kept suspended in time by the old chaos, because it's almost as though it's elected a champion of its own, and out it comes to subdue all of us. And he arrives, and just like that, the battle takes a completely new turn. I even love the parts where it just goes silent, where it's like, despite the eminent influence of the old Chaos, it's very similar to when we talked about the Bed of Chaos, but this is when, like, all the rage and all the manifestations and all the horrors of chaos and of blind fury, the red mist has long since been lifted, and what you get instead is just a painful reminder of that his purpose, or rather, if he didn't do anything, it probably wouldn't have mattered, but if he did do anything about it, it was all for nothing, and all of a sudden he has become his own worst enemy. So paranoid is and driven mad by the influence of the chaos that the only thing to do was to make sure that nobody else would subdue to its horrors ever again. Goodness knows what the story would have been if we ever got told about if the if there was like a cinematic about the Ivory King descending into the old chaos. And actually, to be honest, I've never thought to ask, but has there ever been, like, I don't know, like a short film or just like an amateur production about the experience the Burnt Ivory King might have had if he was descending into the old chaos with his squadron of knights? That would be a really, really cool story. In fact, Dark Souls 2 has so many interesting ideas and stories to it that just sometimes they just don't really meet their full potential, or there should have been a lot more to it, or the execution should have been a little bit more satisfying, but I don't really know why they couldn't have done that. But let's just say that's just something to keep in mind, because the story for the Ivory King is, like I said, it's the man who adored and loved his land so much that he was willing to keep it safe no matter what happened from the sins of the past. And yes, like I said, there are many, many downsides to a lot of things in Dark Souls 2, but there is just as many fantastic highs there as well. And definitely one of the great highs is the story of the Burnt Ivory King. And even the more I think about it, probably even looking back and possibly even looking forward, do you think I should do an entire retrospective of like all the stories of like Vata Vidya's Prepare to Cry, a series of Do you think I should do that? Do you think I should like just do an entire like a marathon of that video and talk about like a lot of the lore and the stories of this? Because I still, in my opinion, and also then again, the fight. I haven't even talked about the actual fight against the Ivory King, because one of the things you do sort of pick up on is that he hasn't really lost any of his power whatsoever, just because he's been succumbed to the chaos. In fact, it's only made his resolve and his logic even stronger, because he was not prepared to let anybody fall victim to the chaos. And probably that's why he would probably sooner kill those who come anywhere closer, just to make sure nobody else became manifested by it ever again. I'm not entirely sure why they say that, because let's face it, the things we do are pretty barbaric and chaotic in Dark Souls 2. One of the things we do is that when you defeat the Royal Rat Vanguard, you can become part of the Rat King's Covenant, where you can literally buy piles of shit from him. I'd say you don't need to be succumbed to chaos to think that that's a pretty bizarre and insane thing to do, but there you are. Maybe it's one of those little quirks this game does have sometimes, where you wonder, was it really that worth it in the end, or was it really as necessary? But with all that being said and done, I hope all of you guys have enjoyed this reaction video to the Burnt Ivory King and his grandiose demeanor and resolute and resolve. And I cannot wait to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.